eating my breakfast, about to go inside, where I will be attacked shortly by HRH, the baby Violet, and all of her needs. And I wanted to, before I do that, and before that starts, I wanted to flesh out a thought I started having. You see, even though I haven't been in Facebook and will be in Facebook less frequently for the time being, for a whole lot of reasons, I'm still not that far away. Anytime you post in the groups and start a new thread, anytime you tag me in a comment or in a thread, it comes to me in email form. That's a feature I've never turned off and I don't want to, and this is why. It lets me know what's going on, what's immediate, and what isn't. So, and in between I've got little helper elves in there looking for people that are panicking and giving me a heads up when that's happening. So, I happened to check my email a few minutes ago before I sat down to my lovely breakfast of egg cups, only to see that there's some people feeling like they're failing today. And these are not like losers. I'm proud to say I don't actually coach any losers. Everyone that I coach, anyone that can afford a hobby and a coach and to be here over after college, they're doing pretty good at life. Like pretty flippin' good. Like insanely good. That you have finished some level of education, started a family, probably own a home, probably have health insurance, and have a hobby that involves doing something a lot. And I know that sounds kind of funny, but not to knock on knitters. My husband knits. I do not have good enough hand-eye coordination to knit. But you could arguably knit anywhere. You don't have to plan to knit. You have to be ready to knit. You got to plan to train. You got to plan a lot. Arguably, you just got to be ready to run, but you got to plan in order to train. And everyone that works with me is training for something. So when it comes to failure, and here's my super deep thought, it's the same bullshit paradigm most of us use when we talk about a glass. Ooh, is the glass half empty? Is the glass half full? There's actually kind of something to that. I always thought that was a really stupid exercise. And if you think this or if you think that, then, oh, yeah, no, I actually don't like what I see. Those are nasty. Bless your heart, God. It's so much cleaner to be a woman. I hate that you have to look down and see that every day. God must hate you. But I digress. So when it comes down to failure, what most people do is say, did I achieve every single aim that could have possibly been achieved? No, then I failed. I think if you were to take a certain event and on the left, like just draw a big circle and write failure inside that circle, and then define failure for that event outside the circle, and then come over to this side and define success, and then write the word success inside a separate circle of a different color, and then write what success would be for this specific instance just outside that circle, you would see that success isn't the opposite of failure. It isn't even the absence of failure. Not to say that Webster's is wrong. What they put in their definition is absolutely how we look at it. What I'm telling you, that's not a good framework for making decisions, judging yourself, analyzing anything you've done, much less living your life. There usually is a wide spectrum between success and failure. And not achieving something you made up after you crossed the finish line does not categorically mean you failed. So, if you woke up this morning and had a plan and you've yet to execute it, that still doesn't necessarily mean you failed. If you meant to run and didn't, doesn't mean you failed. If you meant to make breakfast but didn't have time, doesn't mean you failed. If you meant to help your kids tie your shoe, help your toddlers tie their shoes, just very patiently and calmly rather than doing it yourself, again, because you've got 4 kids and they can't tie their damn shoes and it's maddening and you just want to go to school and it's cold, guess what? You didn't fail. Not that I have any idea what that's like. Just saying. So, riddle me this. If you're somewhere today feeling like you're failing, ask yourself, am I really failing? Am I actively failing? Or am I just in that gray spot between what success could look like and what failure could look like? I like that definition, Alex Fleming. Churchill defines success as the ability to move from failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm. I love it. I am going to be moving from failure to failure today, and it's going to be glorious. And I'm going to stop worrying about failure. If I can't have that attitude towards failure, I'm probably not going to take risks, do anything new, learn anything, or be interesting. And here's the final thought. When I started my big fancy MBA program, this conversation stuck in my head. I was sitting with a guy who now owns a gigantic GD hedge fund in London. He manages a lot of money. He is a smart dude. And we were sitting and we were talking about the system the grades that we have. So my idea to him, I was debating what classes to take, and I was saying this really sucks. You're only allowed to get 10 LTs. LTs is the lowest 10th percentile. Because rather than giving grades, they didn't used to give grades at all. Like, you just showed up if you came to class and didn't screw up and didn't actively rape anyone, you could finish Wharton. It was great. Now they're need you to not have too many LTs. Like, you can't have so many, be in the lowest 10% in too many of your classes, because they were afraid of becoming that place where people come in and skate instead of doing actual work. Despite the fact that we're all overachievers, there is no one at Wharton that's lazy. Anyway, it's kind of like when I say I'm the lazy marathoner, I was the lazy MBA student that wanted to skate and try new things, and was cool to take it on the chin and say, hey, this sucks that I only get to take 10 classes outside my comfort zone. I only get to try 10 really new things. That sucks to me. I don't see the point in that. And this guy responded, I do. It would be kind of weird if you were a PhD candidate in something like astrophysics and you got C's. I'm like, I would think that the guy with the PhD in astrophysics that only had straight A's never challenged himself, never really learned anything, never tested his own hypotheses, never tried anything new, and is probably not actually good at what he does and won't know what to do in that moment when he's faced with something he hasn't had to think through before. I don't want to hire that guy. Give me the guy that had a C and then turned around and majored in it anyway. That's the person I want. The person that failed, realized they liked it, took the time to work it out, and then continued on that path because they found it interesting where something finally clicked. So there you go. Fuck perfection. Perfection doesn't mean anything. Perfection means you're walking on a tightrope, you're not doing anything interesting, you're not doing anything new, and you're probably not doing anything worth doing. You're living a very narrow life, and if that's what you're passing on to your kids, you could be dooming them to live with your anxieties and narrow little life too. So that's my deep thought. You're probably not failing. You probably didn't know what failure was. You probably just didn't do something you thought you should do and felt bad about yourself. That's your ego. That's pride fucking with you. Fuck pride. You're fantastic. You're also coached and loved and winning at life. Gunter33 says, how do you deal with people that judge you on your failures? Well, I tell you what, I don't buy into that guy's hedge fund. And I love telling that story to people who know who I'm talking about. Alex, my husband went to grad school with me. You probably know. I know you know this guy, and I'm pretty sure you know who I'm talking about too. There are a lot of people there that never failed because they never tried anything, and I just think that's really sad. The smartest people in the world don't want to think outside the box that they're already really comfortable with. That's a weird world to live in. The smart people are supposed to be saving us from asteroids that are flying at the Earth. Thank you, Armageddon. But how I deal with people that judge me on my failures. First of all, I have to remove myself from that judgment, because it's easy to get caught up in their judgment and realize and forget that what they're saying in that moment is probably bollocks. And it probably has more to do with them than it does with me. Something that drives people crazy, something about me that drives other people crazy, is the fact that I'm so comfortable failing. And part of the reason I'm so comfortable failing is because I'm not from a fancy background. My husband went to the best high school in America. There's a list of top boarding schools. Choate is right up there, and he went there. That's where he went. And then he went to University of Pennsylvania undergrad on a full ROTC scholarship. Then he was in the Navy, and he was an officer for 6 years. And then he turned around and went not just to grad school, he went to Wharton, the #1 business school in the country. That's right, Harvard. And not only did he go to Wharton and get an MBA, he went to SAIS at Johns Hopkins, another really fancy school, and got a degree in strategic studies. This is a guy whose parents had invested probably $500,000 in his education before he got his first scholarship. That's a guy who had a Russian tutor from the 4th grade onward. That guy's not allowed to fail. That guy lives with pressures that I will never know. All I had to do from difficult Tennessee was not get pregnant before I graduated high school. Well, preferably before I got married. My best friend had her first baby when she was 12. And not go to prison. And if I met those two criteria, I was beating the mean with a stick from where I'm from. So getting into Georgetown, amazing. Graduating Georgetown, amazing. Everything I've done is amazing. Mainly because I don't compare myself to the people around me. The people around me that got into Georgetown, womp womp. Mom's pissed I didn't get into Harvard. It's not Ivy. It's not Williams. Georgetown wasn't good enough. That blew my mind and that hurt a lot. So this is a long way of saying this is how I feel with people that judge me on my failures. They're probably actually angry that I'm allowed to fail and they weren't. Their response to me has very little to do with me, especially in that moment. And if my failure or me being comfortable with failure makes you angry, you need to examine that anger, not my lack thereof. If anything I do riles you up, obviously if I'm standing in your face and I'm saying mean things, that's different. But if I'm just over here living my life, failing out loud, and that makes you angry, examine that anger. So that's how I deal with them, Gun 233. I push them. Like, oh, you're having a very strong reaction to this. That seems hostile. Where's that hostility come from? I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to bother you by minding my own business. What about my business bothers you so strongly? Let's examine that reaction. Put the ball, it's like you're playing tennis, put the ball right back in their court and make them talk about it. Don't defend yourself. That's what they want. If you start trying to invalidate their argument, if you start talking, the more talking you do, the less they listen and the deeper the hole you get yourself into. So that's how I deal with people that think, that try to judge me on my failures. I'm like, I take whatever emotion that they're kind of throwing my way and I poke them with it. And I'd encourage you to do that too. It's kind of fun. And it makes people scared. Emotionally free people who aren't chained by fear, that aren't chained by their ego, we're scary. We terrify people because they don't know how to control us. And that's the thought I want to leave you with. Because you're coached and you're loved and you're winning at life and you're probably not failing. That's why I tell you every day you're winning at life. You didn't know what failure was till your ego said you should have done this and made you feel bad. Your ego is bollocks. I am everything. And so are you.